apologize for being rude and not recognizing the time. We're going to give just 2 more minutes before we get started. Most of that is for my benefit to pull up my computer, and we will get underway. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you. We're not going to tuck each other in just yet. We're going to call to order the City of Carlton Planning Commission meeting. Today is Monday, the 22nd of October, 2025. Pursuant to our calendar, it's actually 2025, 2025. So you get double the 2025 here if you're looking at our agenda. The first thing we're going to do is do a brief roll call to ensure those who are present are ready to proceed, and then we will go from there. Would it be Shannon or Amy tonight?
Yep, I can help you with that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez? Thank you. Commissioner Nordstrom?
Present.
Commissioner Fernandez Madrid?
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Rhodes? Here. Commissioner Rake?
I'm here.
Thank you. And Chair Stewart?
Good evening. Thank you, Amy.
All in attendance.
At this point, we would like to invite anybody from the community who has any comments on anything that are not on the agenda this evening, which is the site design review, which is a continuance from our prior meeting. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on anything else going on in the community or in your personal lives to share with the community? Anybody in Zoom land have any such request? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on to our first and only agenda item this evening. This is a continued public hearing for the East Main Street Fuel and Convenience Store City Case Files CUP 2025-01, SDR 2025-01, and FP 2025-01. On October 13th, 2025, the Planning Commission opened the public hearing for this item and received written and oral testimony. The commission also received a request to keep the record open for an additional 7 days as described in ORS 197.797 subsection 6. The commission acknowledged and set a deadline of 4 p.m. Monday, October 20th, 2025 to submit additional written evidence and testimony. On October 13th, prior to commencing the hearing, I read from the ORS 197.797 and script and proceeded to ask those serving on the commission if there were any conflicts of interest, biases, or ex parte contacts declared. For the continued hearing tonight, the city is not obligated to read from that statute, but it is appropriate for me to once again ask our commissioners tonight if there are any new conflicts of interest, biases, or ex parte contacts to declare since our hearing on October 13th. And I'll just check with my colleagues. No additional conflicts of interest, bias, or no ex parte contacts. We have none, and our commissioner that is appearing remotely, Mr. Rake, is abstaining from participation, as was announced during last meeting. He will not be participating in deliberations and a decision on this items. Again, that is Commissioner Rake. For those attending, all have confirmed that there are no biases or ex parte conflicts or conflicts of interest arising since October 13. Are there any objections to having any member of this commission participate in the continued hearing tonight? All right, thanks everybody for the formalities. We will proceed. The order of this continued hearing shall be as follows. First, we will hear briefly from staff. We will then hear rebuttal testimony from the applicant. Thereafter, if the applicant has not introduced new evidence to the record, it is unnecessary for the commission to reopen the hearing to receive additional oral or written testimony. To date, the chair observes no additional evidence received from the applicant during the 7-day open record period as mentioned. We will finally invite deliberation by the commission and then a motion in order to proceed. We will open the hearing again, which will be limited to staff and the applicant's rebuttals. And we have our staff report and the documentation for this evening's meeting, starting on page 3 of our agenda packet. It's 200 pages, so I'm sure it was riveting reading for everybody. At this point, I will invite brief notes from Mr. White, our contract city planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott White, Contract City Planner, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And yes, as the chair mentioned, the record was left open for a period of 7 days. The agenda for tonight includes a short staff report, and that's dated October 21. All written statements received during the 7-day period, which closed on October 20th, 4 p.m., are included with that staff report. With respect to the procedures this evening, we recommend that the commission provide the applicant with an opportunity for rebuttal. And this would be in response to the new statements that you have as part of the record in that staff report. Staff observed nothing submitted by the applicant other than a letter from the applicant's attorney. And that would mean nothing that we see with respect to a new study, no revisions to the plan, and no revised written response to the standards and approval criteria to which the applicant has already responded to. So yes, unnecessary for the commission to reopen the hearing tonight to receive additional oral testimony from those attending, unless, of course, the applicant on rebuttal enters something new. The staff report tonight also repeats state law. We have the 120 days period of time described under state law. I just want to put some emphasis here that that time frame is actually fairly short. It encompasses all of the time that we have described in our code with respect to the time that we have to post the decision and mail it out, and 10 days there for an appeal, followed by an additional 20 days for notice of appeal for the appeal hearing. And then it also includes what the final written decision that would be, and that appeal body would be the city council. So it is something that we are particularly concerned with, and making sure that we do not exceed that period. For convenience, in the staff report, we have the conditional use approval criteria that's shown. Staff addressed these criteria during the oral presentation on October 13th. We also show the site design review criteria as part of the staff report. And these criteria really cover a wide range and variety of topics like public utilities and transportation. And we also show the city street modification criteria also there to the staff report. We do have, as I think we made clear to the record there, the component of the applicant's project that has a modification request to the street standards, and that is the driveway spacing standard. And that is subject to this modification criteria, which shouldn't be confused with variance criteria. That's a separate application that is not before the Planning Commission. So that I just wanted to make that one clear, as there was some confusion on that particular topic. And finally, we have, with respect to the floodplain development application, there are lots of standards for that type of application. And the key one, though, we have as part of the staff report, that's the tree mitigation requirements. And those that's the habitat part of that section of code, and the applicant has responded to a tree planting mitigation plan. So anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission has that criteria available because it's very important to, my mic's going out here, that you review these criteria in decision making, that the focus be given to these criteria. We also highly recommend tonight that the commission engage in discussion during your deliberation about draft conditions. We have them shown to the staff report that was prepared for the October 13th hearing, and we have them again shown to your staff report for this evening. It's in pages 4 through 7 of the staff report. We did not change these conditions. They are the same to which that you had as earlier there in the earlier staff report. I want to remind the commission too that you have the ability to modify and add to these conditions. In doing so, staff would recommend that the condition be reasonable, feasible, and related to an impact, something that the applicant's project is shown to create, or to assure compliance with a standard, or perhaps something that the applicant is required to do with the state, like go through a DEQ for permits. That is something that the city does not regulate. So that is the summary of the oral presentation. And again, you have all of the materials that were received during that 7-day period.
Is that all she wrote, Mr. White?
Correct.
Excellent. At this time, we will now invite the rebuttal testimony from our applicant. Good evening.
Hello all, my name is,
I should have you, you can just move that closer to you to make sure we get your audio. Thanks.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can everybody else hear okay?
Louder? Okay.
We can put it in your breast pocket too if need be.
Thank you. I think we're in business now. So, hi. So, my name is Nick Roten. I'm an attorney at Matheny Law from Salem. I represent the applicant of this land use applications that we're here to discuss today. So I don't want to be anticlimactic, and I know that you know, a lot of people have come to this meeting and want some resolution to what are important issues that are facing the city. I will say that on October 20th, so prior to the open record hearing ending, we submitted written argument, which ORS 197 draws a distinction between evidence and argument, and that's very important in land use law. And in that argument, we lodged objections stating that if evidence was submitted during the open record period, we would want opportunity to rebut that evidence with our own evidence. Oregon law, ORS 197, 7976C, says that any participant, so not just the applicant, can request an opportunity to rebut evidence submitted during an open record period with their own evidence, and you must grant 7 days in order to do that. So here, evidence was submitted, and we believe we're entitled and would like to request the opportunity, and frankly, anyone can submit evidence, but the twist is that any evidence submitted has to be exclusively limited to rebuttal and response of the evidence that was submitted from October 30 to October 20. So I spoke about this with the attorney, Mr. Mulkey, for Mr. Fernandez Madrid, the neighboring adjacent property owner. I think, you know, he can speak for himself, but in my viewpoint, this probably limits the scope of who can submit materials during that period to just those that are in favor of the application because you would be effectively rebutting the evidence that was submitted from October 13 to October 20, which in my viewpoint was primarily in opposition to the application. So that's number one. Number two is ORS 197-797. I think it might be, it's not 9, or it's 6E. Grants the applicant by right a 7-year final written argument period, and that can only be accrued after the record closes. So it would be, at a minimum, it would have had to have been 7 days after October 20th, a 7-day period, which we believe is necessary in this case, given the amount of information that you guys have to deal with and the important issues that are at stake. We would like to make the request. We made a written request through city staff earlier today. We also, again, lodged the objections in C59, which was an exhibit to the staff report. And, again, I apologize based on, I know there is some, probably some hope for resolution, and you guys have probably worked hard to study the issues and the facts. But we do believe this is very important for the applicant to kind of correct some of the things that we believe we've seen in the materials and provide our own evidence and response. And so, in order to do that, because I know there was a concern of the 121-day deadline, I would say that Oregon law also provides that for the final written response period, the argument period, which again, there's a difference between argument and evidence, the 120-day clock does not run during that period. And that's just based on the statute ORS 197-797 6E. But in addition, because of the nature of the evidence that has come in, and because we feel the city has an important decision to make and we want to provide you the most and best information possible, the applicant is willing to grant an extension to the 121-day deadline for a 21-day period, which, based on the fact that the clock will stop during the final written argument period, we view should be sufficient time. And then also, given the fact that there's concerns about having enough members of the commission in order to avoid having even numbers, we would propose possibly a special meeting the week of November 17th. So if a meeting on the week of November 17th or around that time to allow 5 members of the commission to attend is something that you guys are open to, and if the 7-day response and rebuttal period is something you're open to, and as well as the 7-day final written argument is something that you guys are open to, we would be willing in that situation to extend the 121-day deadline. So I guess, as stated in the record, or in the letter I've submitted previously, based on the information we had prior to the October 13th public hearing, and after that public hearing, we felt the application meets the standards and criteria. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. You guys have to wear your judge hat. There's a lot of concern from the community, and I know as planning commission members, you have a broad perspective for what's good for the community. There are limited things that you have the capacity to do in this setting. And that's kind of set forth in the letter, but at this time, we really need additional time to respond to the evidence that was given to provide you with the information that you need in order to make the best decision for the city and for the community. So that's kind of where we're at for now. And I suppose I'll conclude with that. So.
We appreciate it. Thank you, sir. As much as I want to put my attorney hat on, I will defer this to our city staff to kind of give a specific response to that inquiry and then how we're going to proceed this evening.
Okay, well, yeah, Scott White here again, city planner, and I will also probably turn this over to Tyler Yeoman Millette, the city attorney as well. And there's a lot of ORS here that timing of things that makes it very confusing, probably confusing to a lot of people that are there attending. Certainly, we have to follow procedural law that is described in the state, as Mr. Roten described. One of the things I will bring to the attention of Mr. Roten, if he hasn't already been apprised of it, you were not attending the last hearing, and the chair did during that hearing ask if we could put the timing out a little bit further. And it was declined. We certainly asked, and Mr. K is there. He said, no, the client is not willing to. So you were not there to, when we offered that period of time, that was declined. So we also went through an exercise of trying to figure out everybody's schedule here. The date that you just identified, November 17th, is not a regular scheduled planning commission. We've had trouble with getting quorum here at the city. And we've also, we're short a person. We have a vacant position on the planning commission as well. So that's one of the things that I am concerned about. I've gone through writ mandamus to know what happens after 120 days. I don't want to go through that process again. I kind of swore I would never do that. And sometimes a judge in a circuit court that has to hear that, not familiar with the land use process, will also just look at it and say, yeah, the city's at fault. So I am very keen on the 120 days. You're only giving a 20-day, 21-day period here. I'm kind of wondering, one, if it can be a full waiver or a longer period of time. And I'm also thinking here that we can get to a point where the commission can deliberate on what's been said. I didn't hear as part of the rebuttal testimony anything specific to what's been presented there, but I also maybe understand that that's a difficult. You didn't have a lot of time to digest all of that. So, anyways, want to say anything there else?
I concur with Scott.
On behalf of those who are advising the commission, is it our understanding that we will proceed with this evening's hearing?
That is our recommendation, Chair.
Understood. And is this something that is going to require a formal act or vote on behalf of the commission, or would we proceed on to our deliberation phase?
Procedurally, I believe the commission can just proceed without requiring any formal action at this time.
Thank you very much. It is helpful to know that this is not the venue of last resort for both community members as well as the applicant. And so for that reason, we're expecting that this communication and this conversation will continue after today. This will give an opportunity for the commission to give its perspective. But there is an appeal process next, which will go through the city council. And so you will have an opportunity to have more popcorn and more gathering at that time, I expect. With that, we're actually dealing with the ghost of Steve Jobs, who put my computer to sleep while I'm sitting here. So we will proceed with our deliberations, and I will reserve mine until the end. At this point, we will formally close the hearing, and then we will commence our deliberations. In no special order, Ms. Fernandez-Madrid, would you like to commence our deliberations for this evening? She's going to kick it down that end. Okay, you get one passy in this world. Commissioner Nordstrom, I'm going to give you the floor. And this will be an open conversation, but essentially prompting our ongoing conversation between all of us.
That's a lot of pressure.
But I know you can do it.
I want to recognize the engagement of the community on this. I've been on planning commission for a while and have not ever seen anything quite like this, which certainly signals the importance of how we proceed. So I do want the community to know that we are all taking this incredibly seriously and are going to do our best. I mean, speaking for myself, do my best to follow the law, follow what I think is the, follow appropriate land use as well, right? This is not an easy issue in terms of the position we're in. Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of concerns were raised even by the commission, and I have a lot of concerns that the applicants that there's a lot of treating this piece of property as if it were any piece of property zoned commercial. And the kind of mitigation of the harm is just related, seems to me, and maybe can be addressed more, seems to me to be related to whether this property were anywhere in town. And I recognize the, well, here's the boundary of the floodplain, but I would really like to understand more about the mitigation for the actual in-use agricultural neighboring property. There is agricultural use right next to this property, right downstream from this property. And I am really concerned about that. Maybe, like, I don't know if our code, I mean, I believe our code addresses it in that there is this criteria that says, we do have to pay attention to what's happening nearby to a zoned piece of property. And I'm really unsettled by what seems to be sometimes relating the property to being, oh, it's near residential, so it has to do this. Oh, sometimes it's not near anything, so it doesn't have to do this. And I'm really struggling with how the applicant is viewing the neighboring property and various mitigation of harm, which I see as the neighboring properties are residential and active agricultural. And I'm not convinced that the appropriate measures are being taken place.
I think that's a very thoughtful and helpful opening statement. Commissioner Chavez, do you have anything you'd like to share? With our intention to eventually revisiting these based upon each of the criteria, but essentially no.
I am with Commissioner Nordstrom. I really appreciate the community for coming today and the previous meeting. I agree with Commissioner Nordstrom about community engage on this issue. I was very pleased last meeting on the 13th to see a lot of people here. I mean, we had a full room, and that speaks a lot about our community, how we care about our city of Carlton. I had concerns too, and I'm troubled for some of the things on the proposal. I'm a civil engineer. I graduated back in 1980 and retired last year, so I have 44 years experience on construction and design. One of my favorite classes was traffic engineering and highway design. So I have some knowledge, and I remember when I took a class, there are 3 things that needs to be met for every project an engineer will design. One of them, and number one, and always one, is safety. Safety is the most important thing to take into account when you are designing something as an engineer. The second thing was needed to be functional. And at the end was cost effective. So I have safety concerns on this project, and I go back to modifying the distance between the driveways in and out. And there is a reason why we need 110 feet. It's a safety reason. It's going to allow enough distance for traffic exiting or entering the gas station to prevent an accident. We are carrying that distance, I think, to 60, 50 feet. And I don't think that distance will give us enough room to react and prevent an accident. I probably gonna see a stop sign exiting the gas station, but nowadays people don't respect stop signs. People are just gonna roll into the highway and make a right turn when somebody from the other direction is trying to make a left turn to get into the gas station. We are asking for trouble, carrying that distance to have. It's safety. And I really struggle with that. Like I said, I have the background of being an engineer, and that really bothers me a lot. Also, there are so many things in that piece of highway. You have the bridge so close. The road is narrow. We have very, very narrow shoulders and a 4-foot drop on the ditch. And I see in the past when people are trying to make a left turn and the guy approaching from behind that cannot stop, so they go to the right trying to avoid the car. Well, this car in this case is going to end up in the ditch, no doubt. The other thing is we had the big tanker coming to supply fuel, and they're experienced drivers, okay? But we are going to have more than just the fuel truck coming. We are going to have deliveries. And today I saw a big semi-truck delivering supplies at the Carlton Corners gas station. And I don't know that big truck is going to be able to manage that turn into the gas station. Now we are going to have also traffic. And I go back to the traffic study. And right now, the basis of the traffic study is a 450, I think an F450 truck. Is designed to supply room for that. What happens when we have a person pulling a boat or an RV or a utility trailer? We see that a lot in Carlton Corners. So do we have enough room in that gas station that way it is to be able to accommodate different vehicles like that? I didn't see anything on the traffic study. The other thing that surprised me is I used to do traffic studies, and they are not a one-day deal. Here we have a traffic study done on February 11 of 2025, and it's a one-day affair, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. I think a project of this magnitude and this nature requires a real study. Put sensors on the highway and monitor the traffic for a month and see what you get. But I don't think a one-day traffic study, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, is sufficient to decide if the traffic is going to be okay. Now, also when I was an engineer designing, we project 20 years in advance. What's going to happen in 20 years from now? I look at the study and maybe I missed something, but I only see projections to the year of 2028, 3 years from now. What happens with a real projection of 20, 30 years? How long is this gas station going to be? Only 2028? Or is it going to go beyond that? So I don't know if that's enough to be able to provide information to make a good design, or say, you know, we don't have enough room there. We need to find a different way, or it's not feasible to have this gas station. So I struggle with those things. So it took a lot of reading, and today was a busy day. But I have really, really safety concerns, and I don't want anyone to get hurt trying to enter or exit the gas station. That's all I have to say.
Excellent. I appreciate that very much. Commissioner Rhodes, do you have a broad statement of your understanding and approach at this point?
So I've done a lot of reading, lots and lots, and I feel like just with the magnitude of how big the packet was, I just I'm just so overwhelmed. It's shocking that certain things like worries about spills or, abutting properties, property value, traffic, all that stuff. Even though technically things are being met, I'm worried about the long term. I'm worried about, we have one bad spill. How bad does that affect our wetlands? The properties nearby, even though, sound and visual and things are being put in place to hopefully mitigate that, like how much is that really being mitigated? Overall, I'm just worried that even though technically these conditions are being met in some way, are they really? And how much can we really be assured that in the long term, this property, the surrounding area is really going to be protected? So I would love to, not love, but I would like to get more information on certain rebuttal evidence with the concerns that we brought up in the last public hearing. And thank you so much for, having your testimonies. It's really important. And I just hope that we can take all that information and get down to a good solution for what is happening. So that's all I'm going to say.
I want to echo my fellow commissioners and thank everybody here tonight and at the previous meetings. I do read every bit. And the lovely thing about the great little town of Carlton is that people come together when they deeply care about something. A couple of the letters really touched me, and I want to offer an apology to anybody who was affronted by being referred to as the popcorn section. This is extremely serious, and I just want to apologize because in no way, shape, or form would I want anyone to feel denigrated by this process. Your presence here, your letters, your participation is what drives the process. So thank you for that. Dovetailing on my other commissioners' comments, there's a lot from the first meeting that I didn't really feel the answers were all that good. Diving into the second half of the packet and also looking at, the arterial street requirements. I notice that, as Commissioner Stewart said, Commissioner Chavez, there is a very narrow bridge there. There's no shoulder to speak of. It's what we call a fog line, which is a painted stripe. And then there's about this much of crumbly edge before you go in a ditch. What I found lacking in the presentation is they haven't mentioned sidewalks. They haven't mentioned bikeways. They haven't mentioned on-street parking, which is required on our local arterials. So that's something I want to keep open. The other thing is that this driveway reduction is not safe, in my humble opinion. It worries me too. As I pointed out at the last meeting, I live out on Medofrey, and I come in and out of town that way every day and have for the last 30 years, except when I lived on Park Street. It's a dip. I know enough about engineering, and perhaps Commissioner Chavez can speak to this because it is his forte. To estimate rise and run when you talk about the degrees of dip, so something that everybody can identify with. And in several of the letters, people that have lived here a long time, one of the folks suggested that we all go out to Medofrey or Old McMinnville Highway and look this way. Well, I pull out of that street every day, and there's quite a bit of run and rise from where I am down into that dip where that bridge is. It's a limited sight distance, and I did reference at the last meeting the applicant's table here, and that's the Henrico County Traffic Engineering I'll just say it again, the stopping distance at 35, under the best of circumstances, is 250 feet. Those of us that live here know that on any given day, it's more between 45 and 55, and that would almost double the stopping distance. It's a blind driveway. You cannot see it until you're on it. I have as much concern as my fellow commissioners that this is not safe. It's too narrow. It doesn't meet code when you're reducing it by half. And I think you'd have to have some very skilled drivers not to have wheels up and over and on when trying to access or even exit. We've all lived here. We know how things are at the corner, and trucks come way over into the left into the oncoming traffic to make that. There's the articulation to keep in fact. There's the turning radius to keep in fact. And as I look at these drawings, I don't believe it meets them. And so those are my concerns on that part of this. And maybe Commissioner Stewart wants to weigh in, or we need to go to the other parts that we are considering. Thank you.
Yep, I will weigh in briefly and just say I'm surprised I have to say anything about it, but naturally a reference to popcorn is a glib remark about community engagement. Community engagement is appreciated. I feel it's silly I even have to mention that. All comments and community engagement that we have received will inform our quasi-judicial role. We are acting pursuant to the law. We've heard a lot of very extraneous information and a whole lot of very relevant information. Our job is to sift through that and to make a decision so that you guys are not spending more money on appeals and attorneys and fighting. We got to do this the right way. There are things we can change. There's things we can't change. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we fall within the lines. But a reference to popcorn or anything else is just me trying to make light of a very serious and important situation. With respect to how we're proceeding tonight, we're going to do this very structured. We have 3 items and we're going to do them in order. And starting at page 2 of the staff report, which is found on page 4 of our 200-page packet this evening, the staff has gone out of their way again to give us the very specific requirements and criteria that we're going to have our discussion and ultimately have to make our decision on. The first one of those is going to be CDC 17.152.030, and that describes the conditional use application and the criteria upon which we can make that. There's 5 of them there. So for example, if we're going to hear things about the modification request of the driveway, we're going to do that in the next session. Or if we're going to have any conversation with respect to the floodplain development, we're going to do that when we're talking about that specific application. That allows us to leave a record as good as possible for those that may or may not need to review this in the future, as well as keep ourselves constrained to the things that are relevant and the things, while they are from our community, they are appreciated, that are extraneous or not relevant to our criteria. Again, we express our great gratitude for that, but we have to operate pursuant to law. We have great staff, great attorney, and a great team that have helped guide us here. And of course, we have the great community that's given us a perspective. With that said, we will start with our conditional use permit, which is the 2025-01. The conditional use permit shall be approved if the applicant provides evidence substantiating that all the requirements of this title relative to the proposed use are satisfied and demonstrates that the proposed use also satisfies the following criteria. The first one is that the use is listed as a conditional use in the underlying district, or the approval body finds that the use is similar to a conditional use listed in the underlying district. With respect to this specific criteria, do any of the commissioners find that the findings of the staff are divergent, or that this would be a grounds for denial under this criteria? I think it's appropriate if we just kind of go in order, same ways that work for you guys. Commissioner Nordstrom, under 17.152.030 subsection A, do you find that this use is appropriate as requested by the applicant?
Yes, I find that it is an appropriate use for a commercially zoned property.
Mr. Chavez?
I do agree with Commissioner Nordstrom.
Excellent. Ladies?
I do have to agree based on the zoning of the commercial business zoning, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. If only they were all that easy. The next one is the site size, dimensions, location, topography, and access are adequate for the needs of the proposed use, considering the proposed building mass, parking, traffic, noise, vibration, exhaust emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, dust, visibility, safety, and aesthetic considerations. In our same order, Commissioner Nordstrom.
Go first all night.
Yeah, I just like you that much. Halfway through, I'll switch it, kind of like when they did reverse order in elementary school.
No, I find there to be seriously lacking certain aspects of this, specifically the topography, and the size, and in fact, the location for the proposed use.
For me, it's a no too. I don't think it's a proper access for the traffic. So safety, so it's a no.
Just for those in the community that are wondering, we're going to go through this, but our extra duty is to follow up and identify whether there are reasonable conditions that could mitigate some of these issues, and we need to document that as well.
No, I don't think it meets the conditions.
Does anybody, or before we continue, is there any more specifics? I think Commissioner Nordstrom said topography and access, and safety, I believe, was another one. Do you have some specifics that were informing your thought process?
Yeah, access to the gas station, I don't think is safe. That's the main thing, the traffic, the study of only going to 2028, I don't think is representative of the traffic that the gas station gonna see in the next 20 years.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm going to just agree with that and say that I believe traffic, safety, aesthetic considerations, visibility, all of those are reasons why I would say this isn't adequate.
I also would say no based on not meeting traffic, noise, exhaust emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, visibility, safety, and aesthetic considerations. No.
Understood, and thank you. The next criteria is all required public facilities, including water, sanitary sewer, and streets, have adequate capacity or are to be improved to serve the proposal consistent with city standards. One more, you get to go first.
More. I do have concerns about the water. I will take the city engineer's recommendation that it can be improved. I do think that I would really love to see real proof of that. I know especially the neighboring properties already have water concerns. But I recognize that there does seem to have been some proposed solution to water. It's not clear to me that it's adequate, but I will take that recommendation.
I would say no. And one of the main concerns is the firewater. I don't see a firewater loop. I don't know if we have that. So what I learned in school is sometimes you need to cut service to an area, but you need to minimize or be able to provide water from a different point. That means with a loop. And I don't believe this line has a loop that, let's say they are making repairs in the for the Chad Davis subdivision, and they need to cut the water there. There is no other way to bring water to the fire hydrant. So there is no loop to provide that redundancy. So I think it's a safety problem. It's not the same fighting a fire in a house that fighting a fire in a gas station. You need a lot of water. So I don't think that the water is adequate to provide enough supply for this gas station in case of a fire.
I worry about it meeting standards for the fire department, but there were, things to counteract that in a sense. There's plans to hopefully fix those lines. I just hope we would do that anyways for the neighboring properties instead of just because this application's being put in place. But yes, I would say that it's met as long as those conditions are met.
I would say no, based on our street design standards. We're looking at all public facilities, water, sanitary sewer, and streets. And streets include sidewalks, bikeways, landscape, and a curb-tight sidewalk, which, according to Yamhill County Public Works Director Mark Lago, quote, "The county is not replacing that bridge anytime soon." So I do not see that streets portion of this can be met. No.
Understood, and thank you. Our next criteria will be the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that substantially limits, impairs, or precludes the surrounding properties for the primary uses listed in the underlying district. I'm going to turn it around. Commissioner Fernandez Madrid.
Well, when I turned right off Medofrey to come here to this meeting on the Pacola property, I think I counted 25 or 30 head of cattle. It's the next property adjacent and over. I agree with some of the earlier comments that this is active agricultural use next to a gas station / convenience store. I think it will alter the character of the surrounding area. As stated by Mr. K, the store will open at 6 a.m. if built and stay open until 10 p.m. Currently, there's nowhere on that side of town to go for a beer run. Yes, I think this will definitely change the character of the surrounding area. And whether or not it impairs the surrounding properties, I'm not a farmer, but I would say yes on that limiting issue as well.
I would say no, this condition is not met. Last hearing, we had asked questions about property value, and I really think that a home bought now where there's no gas station compared to one that is right next to a gas station would definitely impact property value, and I think it definitely impacts the character of the surrounding area. I personally would not want to go to a winery and have a gas station right next door and feel like that was a enjoyable, relaxing time. So I do not feel like this condition is met.
I would say this gas station will alter the character of the surrounding area. I took the liberty last week to go and check the site in person. And I didn't want to trespass the property where the new gas station is being proposed. So I went and asked Mr. Felix Madrid to allow me access to see the property, the gas station property from his property. And definitely, he has a nice area for wine tasting. And when we talk about Carlton, we talk about wine. I have friends that they consider Carlton area the Napa Valley of Oregon. So it will alter the character. I will say it will destroy Mr. Madrid's winery. And I don't believe, I'm not against another gas station, but I don't think where this gas station is being proposed, that piece of property, is the right fit. And it will also alter the environment for wildlife too. So I would say this is going to greatly impact the surrounding area. And there are also houses across the highway. So I don't think anyone wants to have a gas station across the street. I mean, you come to this town to find some peace, quiet, you know, and this gas station is going to take that away. So I think this will alter the character of the surrounding area. I don't think it meets that requirement.
To me, the whole point of this criteria is to give really value to the current use. And I think, if you look at land use in Oregon, it very much gives priority to current use over future use. And that is, to me, the entire reason criteria D is in the standards, is in the code, because we cannot ignore current use for future use. And so to me, it will absolutely alter the character of the surrounding area that will probably decimate the current use. And so that is incredibly serious, and that's the whole point of that criteria. I don't think we can ignore it. I don't think we can minimize it. I think it's very, very important. And I know that this may not be part of exactly this criteria, but we are the Planning Commission. And so this may be a little bit out of turn and it can be disregarded in our future deliberations, but that the surrounding area that is not residential is agricultural holding, which is intended to be property inside the urban growth boundary that will at some point be intended to use for housing. And again, I think current use precludes, that always takes precedence over future use. If a gas station goes there, now the agricultural holding will have to conform to the gas station. And I'm really concerned about that kind of perpetual cycle, that not just what criteria D does to our current use, but what now criterion D does to the agricultural holding once there's a gas station there. So I absolutely believe it will alter the character of the surrounding area, as my fellow commissioners have said, both in having serious impact on the agricultural use that is currently happening, as well as the homes that currently exist, as well as the nature that currently exists there that we have said is important to Carleton.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Fernandez Madrid is welcome to make one more comment on that criteria.
Thank you. A couple of comments from Mr. Chavez and from Ms. Nordstrom reminded me of one of the letters that I received, and that's page 23 on our packet, Exhibit C53. And this is from a family in J.R. Meadows, and they thoughtfully included a photograph from their second-story bedroom window looking across at the property. And their statement is, this design amendment will not decrease the light or the noise pollution of all the surrounding properties the applicant has indicated. And that was in reference to a 6-foot fence. It says, we have a second-story home, as do other nearby residences, and have a view of this from my primary bedroom window. I'm looking at this picture, and if there's a canopy that's 57 by 42, and we've gotten assurances that the lights will point down and hopefully they turn off the lights at the end of the night, it's still a glaring bright light that these people in J.R. Meadows are going to see from their bedroom windows. So I just wanted to acknowledge that the sight lines from the adjacent lots would also be impacted.
Thank you. And I will let you go ahead and transition right into criteria E, Commissioner Fernandez Madrid. The negative impacts of the proposed use, if any, on adjacent properties and on the public can be mitigated through the application of other code standards or other reasonable conditions of approval. Your comment on that specific criteria.
Maybe I was out of turn, because I would think that this comment that I just made also applies to that. It's not just the character, but it's the negative impacts of the proposed use. And that does speak to light, glare, et cetera. As far as the other adjacent properties, also having to do with light and glare, I mentioned this at the last meeting, coming out the proposed driveway, the sweep of headlights to the homes across the street. And I think Mr. K said, oh, there's vegetation there. There's an oak tree. It's not vegetation, and it's something that the sweep of headlights would be, I'm sure, intrusive to the people that live there. So I did want to get that in. As far as the negative impacts, I don't know if this could be mitigated, but I do want to reference some of the photographs submitted by Mark Lago, again, Yamhill County Public Works Director. Underneath that bridge, it's pretty pristine. There wasn't a bit of garbage or litter. And that struck me that if this were to be built, I think litter would become a problem, not only on the property itself, but the wetlands, the creek, the surrounding areas. Where there's people, there's litter. So I think that that would be something we haven't really touched on, but it would seem to be almost unable to be mitigated by its very nature. You're talking about soda cans, you're talking about plastic containers, lids, straws, chip bags, what have you. And I don't know what they could do in terms of a sidewalk, but if you're going over that bridge and that creek area, which is a sensitive environmental issue, that would be another concern. So I'll pass the baton.
I believe there would be negative impact with the proposed use, going off of what Commissioner Fernandez Madrid was saying. I believe having just more public use in that area near our wetlands can negatively impact the wetlands due to litter, foot traffic, crime, anything like that. I also just still worry about the budding properties, the property values, I just believe that there's a lot of possible negative impacts that can be mitigated, but not completely wiped away. And I still worry about the long term, about how possible oil leaks, any type of off-flowing, just dangerous substances getting into our wetlands, and how can we actually mitigate that? I feel like we're looking short term and not long term. So I don't believe it meets this condition.
I think there will be impacts that I don't think the code can help. I'm just thinking about cars exiting at night, the gas station, and shining those lights across the highway on those houses. How a code can be modified to try to prevent that. Noise is a big deal on a gas station. You have people, with big mufflers coming. You have people with loud radios and music playing, slamming doors. Like I said, I was in that property next to it, and it was pretty quiet and nice, even though it's a highway right there. I mean, he has a lot of trees, and somehow they count like a help with the noise. And I don't think that 6 feet tall wall is going to help. But you're going to have that going on from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. I don't want that in my house. I don't. So I think there will be impacts that they cannot be mitigated with the code, city code.
I would assume that the city staff, in terms of the types of conditions that city staff have already proposed, are the proposals to be mitigated through the application of other code standards or other reasonable conditions of approval. The city staff have suggested what they believe are reasonable conditions of approval. I respect and appreciate the city staff, but I think if that's the best we can do, it's not enough. And so either we really need to go back to the code and think about conditions of approval for what does it mean to put a gas station next to wetlands. But if I assume that the city staff has taken their best stab at that, I unfortunately don't think those things are mitigated by the things that have already been proposed. And I know we are going to get into a deliberation about whether there are additional things we can do, but I don't think the proposals that have already been suggested are enough. And I'm doubtful that if that's our best attempt, then there is anything we can do.
Thank you to all my fellow commissioners. I thought that was pretty thoughtful, and for that reason, I didn't need to add any comment. I will have some, but for now, I think it would be helpful for us for each of these, the way, at least by my math here, we're looking at criteria B, D, and E, which were broadly negated or, with a no. And then C was kind of a mix between half yes, half no. With respect to our role is whether or not there are reasonable conditions that can sufficiently mitigate these issues. It sounds like, and I think all of us would agree, we are not in a position where we are going to impose conditions that would drastically change the topography of this location. Right. So that's not really something that I think I can speak for all of us, is that that's not a reasonable expectation here. The access component with respect to the requested modification we're going to be dealing with in the subsequent section. Traffic, exhaust, emissions, light, glare, erosion, dust, visibility, and safety, as well as aesthetic. I didn't mark that one as well, but those were all listed as grounds for treating this as a negative. Are there any conditions, reasonable conditions, that any of the commissioners could supplement to those that were identified or provided by staff that could mitigate or address some of those issues that were identified in the comments?
I think access could be mitigated if we have a left turn lane. And also an acceleration lane coming from the gas station heading east.
Are you suggesting on the subject property or within the city's right of way? And that would be something the city or the county would have.
Well, it will be the city or county.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that kind of consideration would be outside of the scope of what we could use, correct? Mr. White and Mr. Mignette? Actions to be taken off of the subject property, correct?
Well, let's see. It is the county's right of way, and the county has, for the record, deferred to the city for review. They've pretty much said, yeah, we'll to conform with the city's standards. So the county has not taken an active response saying, do not, do this or anything. They have said that, yeah, the bridge is not to be widened. So there are some things as far as transition to a larger street at that location. And that it is something that we would probably have to, if we were to change something about that would have to be subject to the county approval. So if you were to structure a condition such, it would have to be with the county's approval for that. We do have a condition there that was Gordon's a part of the list that the commission has that did have the 3 feet on one side there. And so that is the only, and the half-street improvements, of course, that the applicant has shown to the plans. I don't know if Gordon wanted to also add to that.
With regards to whether it's appropriate and that condition could be imposed, it is on the frontage of the property. They have already put in sidewalks and enough asphalt for bike lanes. So those conditions have been met by the application, and they did look at whether a turning lane was required in their traffic report, but it could be a condition that could be put in. And I would also indicate in agreement with Scott, there might be some issues with the bridge being so close and having a wider section of the road and transition. It might actually be very hard to do and make safe.
Thank you, sir. At least from my perspective, I appreciate the commentary with respect to headlights and things, but I start to think about everybody being able to make an excuse about what their neighbor's doing. For example, where this winery we're talking about to be converted to a lovely pig farm that had agricultural floodlights every 45 yards, that would be permissible under agricultural activities, and those lights could be on all night long. So while I appreciate those concerns, I'm less influenced by them. To me, it gets into both the topography and access and some of the other criteria. I am really interested in understanding whether or not additional conditions can be imposed to address the runoff, whether it's stormwater or otherwise, to mitigate some of these environmental concerns. My understanding from the testimony of the applicant and the documents we received is that the area that is immediately underneath the, what would you call it, like a porte-cochere or an overhang, what would you call it? Canopy, thank you, that's a much better word. The area immediately underneath the canopy that would house most of the fueling activity is intentionally graded to a collection and separation system to mitigate environmental impacts. The testimony and some of the concerns that we had from the community were, what about the areas that are outside of that canopy zone where fueling activity would occur? I believe there's at least some access to the tanks that would be done. I don't have any personal experience of it. We heard testimony about concerns for spills during the filling or loading process. And so I would wonder if there was a condition that could address the environmental impacts, requiring a larger area for grading for any of the fuel transfer, loading, unloading activity, further directing that towards the middle of the property. I don't know if that is from an engineering standpoint or from a practicality standpoint would be workable. Thereby reducing as much as possible the possible effluent going into the riprap and into the creek.
Well, I believe there was testimony from the applicant about the fueling area and that there are precautions that are required in that area. So I think that was addressed, but certainly there's grading that can be done that can on the asphalt that will take it in one direction or another, and modifications can be made. And there are already stormwater facilities anticipated and part of the plan, and all the runoff is directed to those right now. They could be enhanced.
I think that would, at least with respect to the environmental concerns, I would feel like that would be a reasonable condition. And it may not be the entire asphalt surface area, but for all of the areas that we're expecting, like we saw in the traffic diagram, for the turn in, the stop, the park, the fill, if there was a means by which that grading, that bowl that goes into the middle underneath the canopy could be expanded and to where it would naturally direct some of that inward, I think that would go a long way for giving me some comfort, boost charge.
So there is some regulatory issues with that. Under the canopy, we can go to the sanitary sewer. Outside of it, we can't. So it would be a different system, and we can't run all of it into the sump that's in the underneath the canopy. Then DEQ won't allow us.
Gordon, can you speak to the detention pond, detention tank? That is the other side of the retaining wall. And then I had asked last session, and I would like comment either from Mr. K or you, where the notches are in the retaining wall. Where does that drain? I'm assuming to the detention pond, but I don't want to assume. And you're exactly correct that under the canopy where the oil water separator is, that will go through city sanitary sewer. But these other potential spills, runoff, what have you, that per the grading, that will go toward that retaining wall. My question from last meeting was, where does that go?
So that was also answered by the applicant last time. That will go to the detention and treatment. It'll be graded in that direction.
And is that a pond or a tank?
It's a pond. It's a swale, and it's both detention and treatment.
With eventual drain?
Eventually, it discharges onto the property and then flows over land
riprap.
down to the creek.
Over the riprap. And at the point where the weir is?
The weir?
Mhm.
What weir are you talking about? So the way it's designed is the flow that's going across the pavement all goes into that detention pond and treatment through a pipe system. And then it flows through there, and then it is, after it's treated, it gets discharged. The notch, which is what I would call a weir, is that's the overflow, and that would be graded once it goes over the wall. It's graded to also go into the treatment and detention.
Thank you for that clarification.
So to continue the conversation, that was a consideration that I had with respect to a reasonable condition of approval. Are there any other of these concerns that have been shared that could be addressed with a condition of approval beyond that which was provided to us by staff as a suggestion? Because as just a reminder to the fellow commissioners, the staff has not identified any grounds for a denial. And so we're going to need to be explicit in how we document the insufficiency of the conditions and how other conditions will not be sufficient to mitigate these concerns. In no specific order, Ms. Fernandez-Madrid.
I'm no engineer, but I certainly have continuing concerns about the visibility and safety of the driveway area. As I've stated, it's a blind driveway. I don't know how you would go about making that more visible, especially because of the 10 or 15 degrees of run and rise coming from actually both directions. But I certainly would like that addressed if somebody can come up with a way to do that. Erosion, that's a big concern. The riprap rock that goes along the subject property. Again, my concern is that from Public Works, Yamhill County, as well as Gordon, there were concerns, and let me find it here, about no net loss of the floodplain capacity and landscape. And it says the plans show that no work will be done within the within the on-site wetlands, but in the next sentence, it says the plan shall also provide for mitigation of wetlands as disturbed during construction activities. I don't see how you can have it both ways. This is what I'm very concerned about. You can't get big, you know, tractor, well, not even the tractor, I'm talking about the construction part. You can't get big equipment in there. And I think across the street, as an example, when the county was there bumping up the bridge, they entered underneath from the north side, and they had bulldozers, and there's, you know, essentially an indelible track that's there to access their heavy equipment. Similarly, I don't see how you can do this you can't drop this from the sky. There's going to be trucks, there's going to be graders, there's going to be bulldozers, and it will cause damage to that environment. I don't know how to mitigate that. And that's part of my frustration with the siting of this gas station. It just seems unsolvable. And that's all I have right now.
I just have a couple questions because I don't really know how to really go about creating a condition of approval that's actually valid. But I would really like to see a traffic report that's actually during a busier time. And I would really appreciate if we could put a condition of approval to get that done. And then I just purchased my own home this last year. And I am just would be so frustrated to have gone through all that with everything in the economy right now and then find out that a gas station was going to be at a neighboring property. I don't know if we can, but is there a way to get a condition of approval to get an appraisal of before and after the abutting properties to see if there is an impact? That is public welfare. That is people's living. I'm just curious about that. Another one, this might be out there, but doing my research, convenience stores in general and earlier hours do impact crime. And I just don't know if there's a way that we can assure that having these later hours, earlier hours, close and near vacant lots, which includes our agricultural zoning and the nearby abutting properties, how can we assure that we're not going to be introducing more crime into our city? We're very, at least I believe, a safe small town, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to be putting in properties or businesses that could possibly increase that. And then to go off of that also, we're doing a lot of mitigation to meet conditions of approval for lighting. But if we are just keeping our lighting down a ton, how are we ensuring that we know what's going on in the surrounding property? I mean, at the Carlton School District, we had to put fencing all around the play structures because, we wanted to keep people out from doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Having the gas station there, I worry that that's just going to be a bigger access point to those surrounding properties, the wetlands, and having things go on that maybe we're not necessarily wanting to have happen. So I would love maybe some feedback from the police chief if there's any regards in that. I don't remember seeing anything in the staff report. Maybe I missed it. So if you can direct me to that, but a condition of approval to get the police chief's opinion on possibly rise in crime or just more foot traffic in that general area. And I worry about environment. I worry about everything. I'm stressed up here. So sorry if I can't come up with more, but for right now, I'm going to pass the baton. So.
I believe our record is closed for additional evidence or information at this point, so we can't rely on extrinsic or information we would have liked to have had. With respect to the question for the police, Mr. White, can you confirm or clarify any specific concerns or any comments whatsoever with respect to community safety concerns, if there were any?
Well, there's certainly, when we get an application and deem it complete, we route it to the various offices, city offices, and the county and state offices, the ones that typically have purview in review of development plans. Certainly, the plans were routed to the chief of fire. I'm not sure exactly if we had the police plans routed to the police. We generally look at what the scope of the application is and whether it requires something that an agency or a staff member should be apprised about, and we certainly ask for that. I don't recall anything to the record that addresses matters of related to crime. And I don't think that would be something that we would have pertinent to this application. Not to say that that's not a valid concern. I'm just saying that you'd have to tie that to the approval criteria there. I don't see crime listed under B there. And it gets into speculation about, what uses have more crime than another. That's kind of a tough one there. I also want to raise a question about the appraisal and money and property values. This is something that there's been lots of case law through the years about, and basically Supreme Court has pretty much said, yeah, you've got to reduce to a point where there is no other value to be used to it. So, I mean, as far as diminished property value, that is not something that you can make a decision of denial on. I would urge the commission not to consider that matter of reduced property value. I don't know if anything else we can add with police or anything like that.
I think that was a helpful answer. Thank you very much for the guidance. I do have a follow-up question. There was a comment with respect to the traffic study, and there have been other comments about it, about the purported limitations of the times that those studies were done. The question for staff, and it may be for our engineer, is did the traffic study as presented by the applicant meet the rules, requirements, and criteria under state law or under our code for such a traffic study?
Typically, the traffic engineers use the state ODOT requirements and for their traffic study, and they did so in this instance. So they covered all the topics that are required. And I will say our code is not as specific as the state. So they went above and beyond our code and met the state requirements for what they are evaluating.
Thank you.
And I would concur with Gordon's comments. We do check for things. I mean, Gordon and I, we are not traffic engineers, but we are able to kind of take a look at the Institute of Traffic Engineers. They get a book of numbers and checked and verified it was the correct use category in that, and we can make sure that they've done things according to what they're supposed to do under the code and what Gordon described there to that higher standard that the state utilizes. So yes, and I'll even mention too, sometimes this is where the pre-application conference, we can direct an applicant to say, hey, we want a little bit more. And so that queuing analysis that was included with the traffic study, that is an addition and something that we requested of the applicant and the applicant provided. So that's not, the queuing analysis is not described as part of the traffic analysis, but it is something that we saw as important given the given just what the applicant had there as a modification request to that spacing distance on the driveways.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Chavez.
So the projected traffic only to 2028, is that normal? So that means after 2028, traffic is going to continue increasing. So is the study still good?
It's green. That's what they normally do for this type of study. Obviously, traffic always increases, and it's hard to predict where it's going to go in the future. So if you predict too far out in the future, now you're getting real fuzzy. But that's what they have done as far as predictions is standard. We may
I have
not
another
like
comment.
it.
It's on the fire water. So what's the plan if we don't have water in that hydrant from the west side? How are we gonna fight the fire station? Like I said, in my experience, we have loops that we can bring water from the east side. So we have a fire, they're making repairs on the JR Meadows station, so the water is cut off. There is a fire in the gas station. What's our plan to fight the fire? Do we have enough tankers? Do we have a well nearby? That's my question.
So one of the conditions of approval is to upsize the water system so that they get 1,500 gallons a minute, which is what the fire department requires. Looping, while it is something that we always want, is not a requirement. And if you look at any water system, they will have lots of dead-end lines that are not looped. It's not as resilient as you would like it to be because, as you have noted, you're not getting water from two directions. That's not a requirement. The requirement's the fire flow, and there is a condition that they improve the system such that they get that.
And as a result, if that condition for any technical or hydrological reason cannot be met, this development will not proceed, correct? That is the nature of these conditions that we're imposing.
Well, I think they can meet that condition. The water master plan also had requirements for how large that pipe should be. And they go through a water model that shows that the fire flows can be met.
I guess I was just more asking that quasi rhetorically for the community, is that when we were imposing these conditions that this facility be in compliance with the 1,500 gallon per minute requirement, if for any reason they do not make the improvements or this cannot be done, the development will not proceed.
Well, they have to meet that, if that's what you're asking.
Mr. Chair, I'll just also mention, we've structured the conditions with various thresholds that they have to, that particular condition that Gordon has crafted in there, it needs to be completed at an early stage. So the answer would be they would not be able to go forward with a building permit until they have that in place.
I think, for example, it's not this application, but we've had an instance over the last couple of years where a condition of different development that had to do with bike striping. I see former Commissioner Terrell and Councilor Terrell here, having to do with a specific road here in town where there was a requirement that ended up not being met, and it was so far down in the process that we were kind of in a feckless position to be able to enforce it. Whereas these types of conditions that are dealing with these primary water, sanitary, sewer, gallon per minute requirements, these are going to be done at such an early phase that if the applicant does not meet it, they will not have the opportunity to proceed through the bulk of this development, and they would be out. That's a reasonable.
Correct,
assessment.
yeah.
Excellent. All right, Commissioner Nordstrom, I think we're on to you. You know, ultimately, I guess we're revisiting the question of, are there reasonable conditions that can be supplementing those that were provided by staff who found that there were no reasons or rationale to support a denial that would help change your mind or otherwise offset the rationale described in B, C, D, and E that the other commission members and you have identified as reasons for denial?
I'm not sure that there are other things. I mean, maybe just a question for the city. I mean, we've talked a lot about this safety at that particular, the two driveways and where that dip is and what's happening right past that bridge. And I know this isn't a condition for the applicant necessarily, but has the city, given that the city staff have recommended approval, have you thought about whether we can change the speed limit? Can we reduce the speed limit where we're really treating that as more like in town than out of town? Because I mean, that's not a condition for the applicant necessarily, but the safety concerns are real. And I think potentially reducing the speed limit, not just to there, but there and past there through that kind of residential area could reduce the incidence. If this goes forward, I think the safety concerns are real. And, I don't think but potentially having that be a much lower speed limit could be helpful.
That's a potential. Speed limits are controlled by the state. So the city can't just decide to change a speed limit. Yeah, you have to go through the state to do that. So while there could be a condition of approval, but it has to say that this has to be approved by the state.
How would we structure a condition requiring action by the applicant that is outside of their control?
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
So that would maybe.
The answer, Chair, is you don't.
but what I was hoping for. Thank you. We have heard about exhaust and emissions, light glare, erosion, odor, dust, and visibility issues. Are there specifically with respect to those and the impacts to the neighboring communities? We heard about a 6-foot perimeter wall that was offered by the applicant. Correct me if I'm wrong, it was downcast and otherwise light obscuring lighting solutions in order to move that light downward as opposed to outward. With respect to specifically exhaust emissions, light glare, erosion, odor, dust, and visibility, are there any conditions that any of the commissioners would find helpful? Either, I think it was less than 1 foot candle was the assessment based upon the light study or the application materials at each of the perimeter locations. And so would maybe a condition reducing that or finding some other light mitigation techniques kind of help with at least maybe not helping with headlights, but other lights on the facility?
I'd like to see hours.
Hours?
Yes, when the store is closed, the lights go off, and probably a minimal under the canopy, not lit up like a football field all night long, but when the business is closed. And I'd like to make a condition of approval that they close at 8 p.m. That the lights are essentially off. The other question I had is sidewalks. We've been tiptoeing around that. So if the county isn't going to alter or widen the bridge, the sidewalks will get there how? And the other thing, when you mentioned the driveway, that reminded me, when I looked at the cross section of the pie shape where the 2 driveways come in, there is, if not a handicap ramp, there is a ramp that spills into the driveway. And I'm not sure from the drawing where that person would go, especially if they were handicapped, because then there's this pie-shaped divider. And then there's another ramp on the other side. So there's nowhere for a person walking, rolling with a walker, a wheelchair, what have you, to go, I think, other than out into the street. So I'm a little concerned about that. And then back up on condition C, the public facilities, including water. I went through the dueling packets submitted by the 2 attorneys, and I believe there's mention of a well. So I would think that DEQ would want to look at that pretty closely to make sure there's not contamination from any spills that somehow get into the groundwater of the adjacent properties. Those are big for me.
Just on that point specifically, because I think DEQ was asked for comment. Was there any commentary or any
Well,
conclusions?
I don't think at our last meeting, I don't recall, but it's here in these attorneys' packets that there was discussion about a well. And so I think that would need to be addressed and cleared because of the the nature of a gas station. And back on the ADA, that was our page 7. B4, ensure that the building plans show compliance with applicable standards for the Americans with Disability Act. And that example I just gave you of the ramp going down into the driveway and then the pie-shaped thing and then the other ramps on the other side. That kind of makes me not like it because I don't, without having a plan about a sidewalk, is that even necessary? And also on our TSP that we just updated, in commercially zoned properties, it's supposed to be 10 feet wide. So where is this going to come from? Where is that going to be brought from? Where's the 5-foot bikeway? I mean, this is right here on our TSP. So I don't see a sidewalk. I don't see the bike lane.
I want to give
I'm sorry, my apology for interrupting. I do want to make sure clear for the record here, because I know that the commission has gone through recent TSB update hearings and may have a lot of the new standards in mind here, just for all of this procedural stuff. But this application was submitted and deemed complete prior to, actually, the TSB has yet to be effective. The council has adopted and will have a second reading coming up. But the applicant has beat the clock per se. They are vested to proceed under the code code and everything that exists in, when they submitted their applications. So I'm just kind of one of those things to keep in mind. I know it's kind of the juggle of things that are of constant change.
So no sidewalk?
Well, so there is, yeah, there certainly isn't to the bridge there. And I should mention that the county was privy to some of the early discussions with the applicant before even coming to whether the bridge could be improved, and the county has said no. The sidewalk, in lieu of a sidewalk, we do have the pedestrian bridge. So the applicant has shown that to the plans. The county has a segment of the pedestrian bridge shown to the south side there that would connect to the sidewalk that is on the city property there to the south, and it would connect all the way. They have a section, so it's two sections of bridge there. And I think we showed a photograph of that pedestrian bridge, at least a piece of it, in the PowerPoint presentation there. So we do have that pedestrian bridge again in lieu of a sidewalk.
My question would be, if there's a pedestrian bridge and it's spanning the wetlands, doesn't that contradict our own development code 1756 of floodplain development that prohibits development that increases flood risk or compromises natural water features?
Okay. So they have not shown a lot of details, but enough to show that the footing can be outside of the wetlands and the floodplain. So they do have some plans. It's not a lot of, the conditions of approval require that there are more specific details to come forward when they do that, when they come in for the building permit. But their plans, at least what they have shown with those two segments, show that they can put the footing support outside of the floodplain and the wetlands. It does sort of narrow, we don't have the plan up, but it does, as far as their delineated wetlands and their floodplain, it sort of narrows closer to the bridge.
What is the proposed width of the bridge?
I believe that the width is 5 feet, so that would be an ADA compliant bridge.
Even though this is zone commercial?
Even though.
Shouldn't it be 6 feet?
So yeah, 6 feet is a sidewalk standard, and I'm not sure if that was another upgrade through the new TSB or not.
So this would function as a sidewalk?
This is exactly, yeah, this is because there is not much at all other than vehicle width on that bridge. This is what the applicant is proposing, is a pedestrian bridge.
And how about a bike lane?
So there would not be a bike lane on it. Again, the county has been specific to not accepting any improvements to the bridge. And so there is not a bike lane. I suppose bikes could be walked across the bridge.
At great personal risk. So this proposed bridge that we don't have any details on will function essentially both as a sidewalk and a bike lane?
So we do have some details on the bridge. We certainly have it is, one section is existing, and there's a 65-foot segment of bridge that is in Yamhill County, and that was a photograph that we provided. It was provided as part of the materials packet. So that is the existing portion of the bridge. The applicant has clarified for the record that the proposed 40-foot section that would be added to the 65 section would match in design and materials.
Any comment on the well that the two attorneys mentioned?
I don't. If it's not, we can certainly add that. There are conditions of approval. That's be a reasonable condition to cap the well, and that's look at also to Gordon if as far as conditions. But I have seen conditions where it can require that the well be capped so that it doesn't cause. If there, I don't know what it is as far as the size and the purpose and things like that. But it is something that the commission has in its ability to condition. I will also mention, Commissioner Fernandez Madrid mentioned the hours of operation. To confirm, that is listed among the items there that the commission could place as a condition if it chooses to limit hours.
Mr. White, what part of the, I'm looking at the October 13th package, where is that hours of operation?
Oh, I'll have to get my packet out from. So it would be. B3, staff exhibit B3 of it's a separate staff exhibit, conditions of approval. So I don't know. I'd have to go back to that. And it's just an extraction from the development code. I can go into, it is from the conditional use chapter of the code.
I didn't see that specifically in what was outlined for us in the original staff report for the proposed conditions and the proposed motion. I just wanted to make sure that if we were to proceed, that we would be able to reference that and you have that language.
Yeah, so yeah, what we have are draft conditions that are suited for the site and the use and everything else. But yeah, the code does have in the conditional use. Page 371 there of the October 13th packet.
I see. So this wasn't ones that were listed for us, but it's what can be.
What
included.
can
Thank you.
be, yeah, that exhibit is an extraction from the development code. So it is just what the commission has at its disposal.
I think that would be a good one if our fellow commissioners have that, because we're talking about conditions and reference to this specific 17.152.040 conditions of approval would be very helpful for further informing each of these little areas. Because that was in the last 40 pages of a big package. So does everybody still have that original one from last time? I can pull it up for you and I here.
Anthony?
Yes.
Quick question on those, page 371. So item H, limiting the number, size, location, height, or lighting of signs, we haven't even scratched the surface of that. Again, at this blind driveway, I have no idea where they would think they're going to put a sign and/or is it illuminated? Certainly that changes the character of the neighborhood. The applicant's Yem Hill location has numbers for advertising price on the side of the building, and they are not illuminated in my drives through Yam Hill that I've seen. So perhaps we could borrow that and put that as a condition of approval on H in terms of the location and the lighting of the signs, because I don't think any more lighting is going to be welcome in the neighborhood.
So are you saying a non-lit, so a non-digital sign,
Right.
kind of like a traditional, the 16-year-old gas guy goes out there at the end of the day or changes the,
What he has in Yam Hill is just I don't say a digital display, but it's numbers that are able to be posted on the building, that are able to be seen from the street, but they are not illuminated. If that's a possibility, that would be a nice condition to have, similar to the Yam Hill station.
I'll use different vocab because digital can technically mean reference to digits. So electronic, it's a non-electronic sign. I just haven't noticed it. So they don't have the traditional like red and then green for diesel on an electric sign.
Somebody has pictures.
Binoculars.
No,
They do. There's an electronic sign. So just for our community's benefit as we go through, I think it might be helpful just to list each and every one of these things and identify whether or not any of these conditions are things we'd want to add. We've heard a couple of suggestions here. First one, limiting the hours, days, place, and manner of operation. Commissioner Fernandez Madrid has shared that she thinks an 8 p.m. can close condition of approval. I don't recall hearing anything about the commencement of activities. Was there any other suggestion by you as to when they would be limiting as far as their operation?
I'm sure the applicant wants to open when he opens, but also in terms of site visibility, blind driveway, the quote unquote rush hour in Carlton is basically, like 6:30 to 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So rather than open at 6 a.m., is 7 a.m. reasonable? I just don't think being open, like I said, for beer runs till 10 p.m. in a residential neighborhood is going to go well. So perhaps 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I mean, that's 13 hours.
Have we limited any of the other local, in any other conditional use or any other activities in town? Have they been limited to anybody's knowledge to those kind of hours?
As long as I've been on planning, there's not been, to my recollection, commercial. These have all been residential, ag holding, environmental types of questions. So I don't recall, I don't know if anybody else does, I don't recall any businesses coming before us previous to this.
Do any of the other commissioners have any comments with respect to the hours, days, place, and or manner of operation? The next opportunity for conditions would be requiring site or architectural design features minimizing environmental impacts such as noise, vibration, exhaust emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, and dust. We've kind of touched on this before. Am I correct in saying that there were no additional conditions that any of the commission members would identify that could mitigate the impacts that are proposed by, or that are expected by this proposed activity? To my left?
I think, I mean, I don't know what it would be, but I do think there should be something about the well. I don't know what that condition looks like, but, and that's not specific to this site, that's specific to the neighbor site, but that would be an environmental impact, impacting a well.
So specifically condition of approval that this applicant would have to comply with, would that, the well?
I mean, the well stuff was just, I mean, I just read that last night. I have no idea what that, I have no idea what the practicality of that is, or the, you know, reasonableness of that or anything. But I mean, I don't know if there's something that could be done. I am very concerned about the environmental impact on the neighboring property. And the well was one of those pieces. And so if someone has a suggestion of how to do that, I'm all ears.
Here?
With regards to wells, if there's a well on site, you could certainly have a condition of approval that be closed. If there's a well on a different site, there's no condition of approval for that, except that they have to meet the requirements of DEQ and the state with regards to setbacks from existing wells. And there are requirements for that.
And those requirements are already imposed as a condition for operating as proposed by the applicant?
Those are imposed by the state.
So it would be inherent that they would be exposing themselves to substantial civil and or criminal liability for failure to comply with those regulations.
So, I mean, that's also C is requiring larger setback areas, lot area, or lot depth. I think there was disagreement about what that measurement was between the two, you know, and so I guess I'm concerned if there's disagreement. I mean, does something move forward by saying, well, we've accepted the applicant's numbers on that? I mean, maybe the state steps in. I don't know who steps in if there's a disagreement about what the actual setback is from the lot. I mean, does stuff move ahead and then someone comes in and says, oh, whoops, that was a little closer? Like, at what point does that get actually rectified? Where the well is, what the setback from that is?
That would be through design. They have to meet the state requirements.
We're not clear that that's already been included in the design since the well's the first we're hearing of it, right?
I don't know if it's specific yet. It would have to, that's a detail of specific design that they would have to meet any setbacks from wells. That's just state requirement.
And that would happen in a subsequent site design review process.
Well, design review.
Design review, sir.
Yeah, that would be outside of site design, which is a land use. It would be in the specific design.
I have something.
Please proceed.
Parking was one of the criteria. We're still on B, correct?
We were just merging between B and C and traversing towards D.
Okay, so B, the parking criteria, there's 14 striped parking spaces identified on the plan. This is an aesthetic, but could we have a sign that says, you know, please turn off your engine, no idling? Not just for the you know, the dust and the fume part, but also idling engines, fire safety, cigarettes. Could we have no smoking very prominently displayed, no smoking on the premises? Right by where the pumps are. But I'm saying where you have 14 cars lined up and you have a tanker coming in, I don't think you can be too careful. So I would like to have signs that say no idling, no smoking, very prominently displayed in the parking areas. And then just backing up for my concerns on the curb, and this is mostly for Scott's, it was page 148. The drawing there where the curb ramps are diagonal and direct the bikes and the pedestrians into the cross section versus across the driveway. Whatever ends up happening with the sidewalk, bridge, quasi bike lane, if as it's being submitted, 2 curb ramps are needed at each intersection with the street so that they go across the driveway and across the roadway, not out into the road or up. So that's page 148. Thanks.
So the suggestion is curved curb ramps, a total of 4 at each of these points as we're
Yeah.
passing through here.
Rather than 2 on the outside going into the pie shape in the middle, that there be connection between those, because right now, coming from either direction, it would direct them into the driveway with nowhere to go other than the street. So I think if there was inside, 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 so a total of 4 ramps instead of 2, hopefully that would address that safety concern.
Would the other commissioners, would the other commissioners be in agreement with the 2 to 4 curb ramp request condition?
I do.
Mr. Nordstrom, does that work by you?
No opposition to that.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes, that sound okay by you?
No opposition.
There was also a request for
Excuse me. I have a comment on that one.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so in between, there may not be enough room for 2 ADA ramps going up and down, but they can make it ADA compliant without the ramps. They could have a different design. So I just would probably suggest saying that those are ADA compliant.
To say we'd aim for a total of 4, but if there's room, otherwise they must,
It must be ADA compliant.
Yeah, and I don't know if it would be 4 ramps. Right now, there's the way the plan is, there's the 2 coming in on the diagonal, and then that sort of pie shape, I'm assuming it's an island, for lack of a better word, but there's no connection between them. So maybe there should be I don't want to call it a sidewalk because it's not a sidewalk, but a
Delineation.
delineation that would be like wide enough for a wheelchair so that somebody, if they were rolling down, they'd have a safe place to go across to the next ramp is
Mhm.
what my suggestion is.
Right.
So whether that's 4 ramps or 2 ramps, but there has to be some sort of delineation to connect those so that whether it's kids on bikes, people in wheelchairs, or pedestrians aren't coming down and then going out into the road and then going up again. That seems like a big safety concern. So thank you.
I think that's actually the intent of what they're showing, but to say it specifically is,
Right,
fine.
but if somebody was on a bicycle, and it's a curb, they can't just jump up there. They have to be able to safely go across. So ADA.
Okay. Coming at this thinking about it from a business owner perspective, I'm a little hesitant for the 8 PM close, especially if it ends up being earlier than other things that would otherwise be on similarly zoned areas. But I would welcome other comments from the other commissioners as to the proposed 6 AM to 8 PM limitation on hours as a condition of approval. I heard from the gallery possibly 7 AM, but point is, any limitations for us to consider at this point?
I have thoughts. So I don't know whether that is reasonable or not, and in the eyes of the applicant. I don't know. I mean, in some ways, a lot of the objections and concerns aren't necessarily about how late it's open. It's about it being open at all. And so I mean, and I'm still really struggling with the fact that in some instances, we are being asked to treat this property as any commercially zoned property that would exist anywhere in Carlton, yet we recognize its neighboring properties are not typically where commercially zoned properties are. And so, I mean, this is a unfortunate place that the city is in. And I'm really trying to weigh those two conditions of right, it isn't in a typical, it is a typical commercial property in a non-typical, so which of those wins out in terms of the conditional uses? So do we say, because it is not in a typical conditional or typical commercial area, its use needs to have different kinds of conditions on it? Or do we, so I don't know. And I think that's where I am with the hours is, are we treating this as if it were anywhere else in downtown Carlton? Or are we treating as if this is an unusual location that does have unusual kind of constraints around it? And I mean, I think that's part of the conditional use criteria we're trying to weigh. So I don't really have an answer on the hours necessarily, because I'm not sure whether limiting them or not actually does mitigate most of the concerns. So I guess I'm not going to say, I mean, I don't know whether I have to think a little bit more about whether that would be something I would
Would
vote for or
our
not.
city attorney or city planner be able to give any specific guidance or advice with respect to the question and concept posed here? Is that we're looking at a piece of property that is zoned a specific way, and is there any grounds under our authority or in the code to treat this any differently than we would a commercial property that was zoned a little bit further down the road? Does this have to be viewed in a silo, or is there a broader nuance that can be considered?
My answer would be that do both. There are criteria that specifically reference impacts on, the characteristics of the area, the neighboring properties, but in terms of the site itself, it is zoned commercial, and you can't pretend that it's not just because you don't want to. So I think that's Commissioner Nordstrom, what you're sort of struggling with is that it is unusual, but it also is commercially zoned. Not sure how helpful I actually was to any of you.
It's kind of like the old joke that you only really want a one-handed economist, so they can't tell you, well, on the other hand,
But we will just, a lot of the businesses in the downtown are permitted outright as opposed to this proposed use, which is conditional use. So we do have, again, hours that are listed, and so it is sort of eligible. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Nordstrom, though, to make a connection with that. Again, what is the impact, and do you have surrounding uses? So you're sort of answering to the approval criteria in a way, if you sense that this is the way to answer to the impacts about noise with surrounding residential. So this is a little bit one commercial area that's somewhat different than the downtown. The downtown has a larger area, is surrounded some by some other different zones. We have the commercial industrial zone surrounding the downtown zone. So this is sort of an isolated piece of property zone commercial. So the uniqueness of this you could take into consideration for hours.
excellent, thank you. So at this point, would all be in approval of a 7 a.m. open to 8 p.m. and close as a condition of approval, given the special circumstances of the location of this facility? Would that be acceptable to either of you? 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. As an operating hours or publicly accessible operating hours as a condition of approval, specifically on the grounds that was just shared by Mr. White.
I think that's preferable from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., sure.
I have no argument to oppose it.
No argument here either.
I'm not quite willing to say I would accept that as a condition of approval.
Okay, so I'll put this as a TBD plus. Same question with respect to the suggestion for signs. We already are going to have, I just presume, because I've been pumping gas for better part of 3 decades. There's going to be plenty of no smoking signs, but there was a suggestion for no idling signs or any other signage to address specifically the noise, vibration, exhaust, and emissions, and possibly, if headlights are on, the light component of subsection B. Are there any other specific signage suggestions that would be, or not suggestions, requirements that we added as a condition of approval? Commissioners?
I would say no illuminated sign for the gas station.
Would that be a blanket prohibition or one that would be in that the illumination would have to occur within the periods of approved operation, for example, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., were that to be included?
There's lots of criteria there, the sign itself, the height, whether or not it's illuminated, what hours it could be turned on or off. Since it's pretty much a blind driveway and you can't see this until you're there, my preference would be for non-illuminated. It'll be hard to miss a gas station if this is built, but as the other gas station in Yam Hill has, you could certainly post your price per gallon on the building or on the canopy. I mean, people could see it as they're pulling in, but I don't think you need, where would they put a sign? Sorry, but I mean, it just, you've got 48 feet, you've got 2 driveways. It just begs any kind of value to have a sign that you can't see until you're right at the property. So my preference would be non-illuminated and prices per gallon posted either on the canopy or on the store. But I don't think you have to have more competition and distraction at the road, at the driveways, for safety reasons as well as aesthetics.
Okay. I guess now would be a good time just to take a general poll. Do any of the commissioners believe that there are conditions that can be designed to supplement the conditions of approval suggested from the staff that will result in a vote approving this conditional use permit for proceeding? Or are the circumstances such that no conditions beyond, even in addition to those provided by the staff, would meet your criteria for approving and moving forward? I'd like to just get a general idea from each of the commissioners. I'll start on my left just because I've been looking that way for a couple. Commissioner Nordstrom.
I don't believe I'm satisfied that there are conditions that could be met.
I feel the same like Commissioner Nordstrom, yeah. Now we go back to the sign real quick and we make a low profile sign or no higher than 6 feet. I've seen those in gas stations and that will minimize the glare from the sign.
But even with that sign commentary, am I understanding correctly that you cannot think of a sufficient number and nature of conditions that will result in you approving the conditional use for proceeding?
Not for these items.
Question to you, Mr. Rhodes.
You asked the question.
Are there conditions that, if they were all accepted by all the other commissioners, would put you in a position where you would find in favor of approving this conditional use permit to address the concerns that have been stated thus far in deliberations?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I am very lost with what we can bring up to create conditions. And I feel like there's a lot of public concern, a lot of commissioner concern that's kind of just being almost not dismissed, but we can't come up with a certain condition of approval. So I think there's I don't know. I don't really have an answer to that right now.
Commissioner Fernandez-Madrid, thank you very much.
I'm going to go back to basics. Last meeting, safety, visibility, environmental impacts. I'm pretty hung up on the driveway, I have to say. I don't think it fits. And I have real concerns based on previous comments in the pre-app from the county, from the engineer, about these trailers safely accessing that property. You look at turning radiuses, nobody talked about the length of the trailers. If it did happen to be a pup trailer, the tongue that connects the two is anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. I don't think it can do it. So back to basics in my first set of questions in the first meeting. And I really, really appreciate everyone's contributions in trying to massage this, but it's not a good fit. And it just seems like we're trying to ram a square peg into a round hole. So I'm trying my best to come up with conditions that, as Scott says, are reasonable and achievable. But the basic A through E, I mean, 4 out of 5, we're not there.
Understood. I'll ask, please.
I just want to add that there's really two things in this proposal, a convenience store and a fueling station. And I think it's pretty clear to me that most of the concerns are really around the fueling station. And so if you were going to ask me, is there a condition that I could see, is I could be having a real conversation about a convenience store with, a conditional use permit there. It's the fueling station that I think I'm having a really hard time seeing how we can have conditions that will make that an appropriate site for a fueling station.
Excellent. We have approached 8:15. I would like to take just 5 or so minutes to allow everybody to use the restroom, get a couple of drinks. And I didn't have dinner, so I brought a little Boost with me. So I'm going to drink that. We will adjourn and come back in about 6 minutes and 40 seconds at 8:25. We will, adjourn.
Hey.
We will recess.
I sort of adjourned.
I've got a thesaurus that's going wrong. Thank you, everybody. 5 minutes. That we have returned. Perfect timing for the recording to resume. We are returned for our meeting. We've just finished a poll for our commission members with respect to the conditional use permit. We're going to go through and just follow or at least address these 2 other items briefly on here by how I'm understanding the positions of the commissioners is that we want to be holistic and move through them, but ultimately we should be able to proceed towards a vote and a decision here this evening shortly. After the conditional use permit, we are looking at the site design review and the approval criteria 17.156.060 with respect to the major modification, which is the roadway. Do we have any specific comment from city staff as a supplement to what we received the other day?
No other supplement
This time. Do any of the commissioners have any thoughts, comments, concerns, or other perspectives you would like to share with respect to this proposed modification? And by reference, this is the reduction from 110 feet to 57 feet? Is that the correct numbers?
I'm thinking it's roughly 48.
48 feet, thank you. In a very special person, but no special order, Mr. Nordstrom.
So, because it's been a little bit since we saw this, and I'm right now only looking at the new packet. This is the driveway modification, right? Yeah, I kind of think this has been talked about a lot. I don't think I have anything to add to the discussion that's already happened regarding the driveways.
I remain in the same position. I think reducing the 110 feet distance between driveways to 48. Wow. I think we are asking for trouble from the safety standpoint. We are putting the incoming traffic from the east side and outgoing traffic going east too close. And this is asking for accidents to happen. So I really oppose modifying this 110 feet requirement. There is a reason for it, and it's safety and functionality. So that's what I have to say.
With specific reference to the criteria for our decision-making here, do I understand your comment to be referencing subsection 2, where it says the modification standards in this provision shall only be approved if the city, through us acting as a planning commission, find that the specific design proposed provides, in this case, inadequate vehicular access based upon anticipated traffic volumes?
That's correct.
Commissioner Rhodes, do you have any sentiments or comments to share?
I have no comments to add.
Commissioner Fernandez-Madrid.
I concur with Commissioner Chavez and appreciate his professional engineering experience in this. The other thing, and you might look at it as incidental, but last week we met on Tuesday, and on Monday, as reported by the Newburgh Graphic, there was a man getting his mail this side of Newburgh. So Main Street goes into Hendricks, which goes into CUNY Road, which goes into Highway 240. But essentially, the design is the same. We've got the fog stripe and then the deep ditch. And so this man, if you want to look at the Newburgh Graphic and read about it, was getting his mail about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm sure living on that road, he'd done it a million times. But the driver who struck and killed him was blinded by the glare, which I have mentioned several times as an additional safety factor in the mornings and in the afternoons. We can't change when the sun rises and sets, but we can act responsibly to keep people out of harm's way. And it really shook me. It really seemed to speak to me because of the timing of this. And the next day we came in and had that meeting. It's been on my mind. And so in addition to what Commissioner Chavez said, I just think that this glare blindness from the east to the west and the exit and the egress make this an extremely dangerous place to pull in or out of due to that lack of visibility. And then with the rise and the run and the dip, adds additional things. This morning, we had frozen fog. It didn't burn off till 10 in the morning. Fog sinks. I just think there's precious little time to react when you've got those 3 speed reductions and limited visibility. So I'm really stuck on the driveway. I'm really stuck on the site.
Understood. Thank you. The final item that is for us this evening is a floodplain development application, specifically having to do with the tree mitigation and the removal of a 20-inch, I don't know the acronym, DBH? Diameter at breast height.
It's 4.5 feet from the ground, and it's the diameter of the tree.
I love acronyms, and that's a great new one I'm going to have to use. Okay. So under the circumstances, we are looking at within this specific silo, subsection F of 17.56 says development proposals shall result in no net loss of trees 6 inches DBH or greater within the special flood hazard area. This requirement does not apply to silviculture where there is no development. Trees of or exceeding 6 inches DBH that are removed from the RBZ floodway or RBZ fringe must be replaced at the ratios in Table 1, and replacement of trees must be native species that would occur naturally in the Level 2 ecoregion of the impact area. The staff here acknowledges that the applicant's response and landscape plan provided showing the addition of 5 big leaf maples is to be planted for mitigation. And the findings of October 6th staff report did not find any reasons to deny the specific request. Within this silo, do the other commissioners find that this specific application considered on its own would be acceptable?
Yeah, I think this meets both the spirit and the letter of the tree mitigation. I mean, I will comment, I mean, I have not looked at the native species idea, and I don't know whether it would make more sense to replace those trees with non-deciduous trees, given that there's been other concerns, but just in this context, just in terms of the removal and replacement of trees, I find that this meets the letter of the, what do we?
17.56.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I do agree with Commissioner Nordstrom. I feel like this suffice.
Excellent. Commissioner Rhodes.
I agree with the previous commissioners.
And Commissioner Fernandez Madrid.
I just do want to mention that currently on the site, it will be sacrificed to build the convenience store, but there's a very large fir tree there. It's probably 80 feet. So that will be coming down. And again, it's the environmental impact. And I understand that the tree that we're talking about will be replaced with 3 little ones. So I'm happy for that.
Is it fair to say, Commissioner Fernandez Madrid, there's no specific objection to the criteria that we're looking at for this tree mitigation?
Not for that tree. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm not a doctor, but I can take a pulse, and I think now is a good time for us to consider making a motion with the commission's acceptance. I will kind of walk through what I think would be based upon that pulse, the motion that someone else might make, but I thought it might be easier if I recited that. Would that be okay with everyone? Based upon the information that we have heard today, the written evidence testimony, the oral testimony, the community input, and the broad engagement here that, as the other commissioners have said, has been the largest and most sustained in at least my tenure on the commission, I think the motion to deny CUP 2025-01, to deny SDR 2025-01, and approve FD 2025-01 with the bases for denial as follows. Since FD is being approved, I'm not referencing any denials. These would be for the first two, the CUP and the SDR. With respect to the CUP, the criteria B, C, D, and E under CDC section 17.152.030 are insufficiently met, and that no matter the circumstances, a series of conditions that supplement those as proposed by city staff would not result in the approval of the commissioners. And that is notwithstanding the fact that staff in their specific and targeted report have not provided us with any grounds for denial of this application, either of these two applications, the CUP or the SDR. And with respect to the site design review for the modification for the driveway, the commissioners have stated that subsection A sub 2, which is the modification, shall only be approved if the city finds that the specific design provides adequate vehicular access based on anticipated traffic volumes, that subsection is not met and therefore is the grounds for the commission's denial. I'm not saying this necessarily as my perspective, but I think that that's a summary of what has been shared by the other commissioners. Is that a fair recitation?
Yes.
Mr. White and our city attorney, would that be sufficient where one of these other commissioners were to propose a motion for a second? Would that be sufficient for resolving the matters before us here this evening?
The only thing I'm thinking about with the floodplain development application, what is being proposed for this a change to the pretty minor and does meet the criteria. And this is kind of the paradox to some degree, because what is being proposed is directly related to something that is being denied, if that is the. And so you could make the connection that you are also denying the floodplain application as it is necessary to, that is clearly connected to the development. So that is kind of what the thought process is on the three together here, which I mean, it's been made clear that it is, yeah, it does meet the criteria, but it's not a standalone application. It's in concert with a development application that is subject to the conditional use and the site design review.
I don't recall hearing any specific evidence that the applicant has any specific animus towards this tree absent moving forward with this as well. So would you suggest that we collectively incorporate them
Collectively,
in a
yeah.
denial? Okay.
Right.
So everything I said before with respect to denials with a supplement that the floodplain development permit is also specifically denied because it is contingent and conditioned on the acceptance and approval of the CUP and the SDR that are here before us this evening. So the motion would be to deny all three for the reasons I stated here on the record. Would that be acceptable? And if so, one of my other commissioners could move.
I think it's very succinctly summarized. Thank you, Chair Stewart. And to Scott's comments, I think there's clear evidence as well as testimony that this is disruptive to the wetlands and contrary to the DSL and DEQ recommendations in the previous packet. So that being said, I would make a motion to deny on all three levels.
Floor is open for a second.
I second that motion.
At this time, we will take a vote. Commissioner Nordstrom?
I vote yes on the motion.
Yes on the motion to deny.
Yep.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes, on the motion to deny.
Yes, on the motion to deny.
Yes, on the motion to deny.
Just to be contrarian, I will vote present and abstain from a vote. But with 4 votes in favor of the motion and 1 abstention, the applications are denied. And I expect this not to be the last of the communications and conversations on this. Appreciate everybody in the community for your engagement and involvement. The contributions, again, I was being glib earlier, but it's not popcorn. I was only referencing the smiles in the community. But we very much appreciate all of the information that's been shared. We appreciate the applicant. We expect further communication as we move forward. And on behalf of everyone up here, our work, we do a little bit, but we would not be able to do what we do without the great assistance of our city team, from our engineer, city recorder, city staff. We very much appreciate them. So thank you. With that, the next topic is to discuss any other public comments that were not on the agenda item for people who are in Zoom land or here in person. If you have anything else you'd like to share with us, and if there are none, a motion for adjournment for the evening.
I move to adjourn.
I second that motion.
And as always, we will vote in favor by waving to everybody in Zoom land saying thank you. In favor? We are unanimously adjourned. Thank you. God bless.